What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning into the Local Crown podcast, where we're going to teach you how to wage war on your competition and earn your local crown, also known as the top spot on Google. Absolutely. So, having built 10 businesses and helped hundreds of clients do the same, what are some of the most common mistakes you see business owners making, and what can we do to avoid those mistakes?
Well, we talked about one of them, which was, this idea of understanding your cash flow situation, right? You see people that, and, I'm a cowboy, I'm a big risk taker, but not everybody is. And it might have been easier on me if I had been less of a risk taker. I've been willing to take that leap, but not everybody is positioned to do that. You might have a lifelong dream to start a business, but you have obligations like a mortgage or children or partner. And so knowing that you've got to keep your eye on the ball. Do I quit my job now, or do I, keep the side gig going while I get things off the ground? What is the right way to manage my needs so I don't, send myself careening off a cliff? And so that's really important, keeping your eye on the ball. Making good decisions about who your partners are. As a lawyer, I've advised so many people in putting businesses together. And sadly, over the years, I've also seen those businesses come apart. And I've been a part of those kinds of relationships too that fall apart. And picking the best and the most right people for you to be your partners. And I'm talking in every area, whether it's co-owning your business with you, becoming a supplier, a client, an investor, all the areas that we're doing business, we should be choosing people that are the right fit for us. And that comes from having true clarity about who we are, what our core values are, what drives us, what's our purpose. If you align with someone who says, I want this business to become my personal checkbook, and you're a person who wants to build a legacy company and keep growing and have, establish something with some real roots and reserves, you're going to be at odds with each other. And that relationship is doomed to fail. So really knowing who you are and who you are right for, because not everybody's the right partner for everyone else, right? That's why they talk about this idea of soulmates, and I don't believe in one, but there are others, and we just have to know ourselves first to know what works best for us.
Absolutely. Life is literally, no matter what area of your life you're talking about, I've come to the conclusion that life is literally just testing things until you find out what works for you. And you're never going to be happy until you find out what actually works for you.
Well, I absolutely agree that we've got to try things, and I've certainly have done things the hard way. But, there are ways, what I'll call it, mitigating the risk. It's how I've made a career, right? It's who can we use in our mission, right, to help us support. So, it's what drives me. I mentioned briefly that I went it alone when I left my friends to go shelter in for the storm. Biggest mistake of my life, and I didn't even realize what crazy thinking that was. It was actually months later before I realized I didn't know anybody else who'd weathered that storm alone. And I didn't even know that was crazy for quite some time, that it made no sense that I had choices. And, for any of us to try to go it alone, we can't see our own eyebrows, and so not being able to have that perspective, we can ask for the support that we need. We can get the kind of people around us that can help us see that. And that's what's driven me in my business, is not wanting anyone to have to go it alone. And also because I've been in that seat, starting a business, growing a business, being overwhelmed by all that there is to do. And, the fortunate problem of rapid growth can also kill a business, just like no growth can kill a business, and not feeling like there was anybody out there who understood what I was going through. Who had my level of skills and experience, and that could give me a perspective that I would both listen to and respect. And so I wanted to become the person that I didn't have for my businesses.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. One of the big things that we say is we all win when we all win. And that is because when we band together, we all win. But at the same time, when we band together towards one purpose, like you become an unstoppable force.
Absolutely. Yep. You bet. We have to do it in community, and it's tragically, we have a loneliness epidemic in this country right now, or maybe it's worldwide. The statistics are pretty staggering that, 40% of our population has no one to talk to. There are statistics that, millennials at 25% of them have not even one friend. And, they're completely isolated. And, it's just tragic that this is where we've come to in our lives. So it's really important that there are people banging the drum for community like you just described.
Absolutely. When you're not coming together as a community, you're not, I mean, there's just a stupid amount of power in it. There's not even anything else to really be said about that. We said it all.
Yeah, but you know what? I think we have to keep saying it, and I'll never stop saying it. I bet you won't either, because
Absolutely.
people aren't taking the action, right? I went home alone thinking, I don't know, I don't need anything. I got provisions. I'm an expert professional rescuer. I've had training. I can go offshore and survive for, days, weeks on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And yet, there are situations that simply overpower us. And so it's those things that we need to build community for.
And I think one of the biggest problems is that too many people see asking for help and saying that they need that support as a weakness. When in reality, if you can recognize that you need that support and need that help, and then find who can take care of that issue, that's just a strength.
You bet. I talk about it in my upcoming book. The Resilient Leader is what it's called. And it's called becoming your own storm warrior. And being a storm warrior, everybody understands what being a warrior is, right? I mean, those are people that are defending the tribe or on a mission to, help their community. And, maybe they're up against somebody else trying to do the same. That's their foe. But when you come across a record-breaking Category 5 situation, right, those are the things that are out of our control that we can't handle by ourselves. So the first step in being a storm warrior is being somebody who's able to say, you know what, I don't know how to do this, or I need help. I'm vulnerable in this. That's where the power is, and that's how you become a storm warrior to weather any situation in life and business.
Awesome. That's on point. I could never put that any better.
Well, you don't have to say anyway.
So what do you think are the core pillars of any successful business?
Well, I would actually draw from my own 7 barometers of resilience. We talked about a couple of things in terms of the day-to-day and the operations, the cash flow and partnerships. And, there are some things that we as leaders, we're all leaders in some fashion or another, whether it's, in our parenting, in our communities, in our businesses. And as an entrepreneur, leadership qualities are critical. So my 7 barometers are sort of the cornerstone. And one of the critical ones is self-awareness, right? So how do we get people enrolled with us? Simon Sinek started a movement when he said, Martin Luther King, Steve Jobs, and the Wright brothers all had one thing in common, which is they understood that we can't get people to enroll in a movement, a product, or an idea if they don't know your why. So knowing your why, knowing who you are, knowing what drives you is a critical piece of being able to be successful, to being a leader, to getting people to join you in your mission, and then knowing what that mission is, knowing what drives you and what is your why. Otherwise we're just humans going around autonomically responding to everything. Everything that happens comes with a story from our past. So we're reacting instead of acting. And we're not responding to the situation. We're responding to something that happened, 10 or 20 years ago. And that's the kind of thing that alienates people, that doesn't keep your team moving forward with you, doesn't get people to want to invest in you. So the cornerstone to me of all success and leadership, which is entrepreneurship, is self-awareness.
There's definitely a huge power in actually understanding where you're headed. If you don't know where you're headed, you're just kind of wandering aimlessly.
Yeah. And then being able to tell, show people that you know who you are and that they can trust you and follow you. And then the other piece to that, when I consider a key metric for measuring your capabilities as a leader, is communication. Warren Buffett says that you can increase the value of your business 50% just by being a good communicator. And people don't take that really seriously, right? Because if you're communicating the same way, you're probably losing out on at least 75% of the population that are not listening to you, or they can't understand what you're saying, or they don't want to hear from you because you're not communicating to them in a style or manner that they can relate to. So they shut their ears. We can all recognize that kind of frustration where, I told you that, and people just draw blanks. So if we have the ability to communicate, we can be very effective leaders. And just by contrast, if we don't have the ability to communicate, we will not be able to be as successful as we could be, or worse, we could fail.
Absolutely. I love both of those, honestly, because as far as I've come, like all of these successful people I know, they are very, very clear on who they are, and they can very, very meticulously, I guess, explain who they are in a way that anybody can really understand and resonate with them.
Right. And not everybody can hear in the same way, right? So if you got somebody who is a get to the point kind of person, has a really dominant forward style, they just want to problem solve and, cut to the chase. I don't want to hear how you got there. But then you have somebody else like a Bill Gates, who's very process oriented, and he's in the weeds and he's in the spreadsheets, and, they want to know process. It takes them a while to figure out if they can trust it, what they're getting in terms of information. So they want to go deeper. They want to take their time and be more analytical. Those are the kinds of things you need to know about the people you're trying to communicate with so that you don't blow it. Right? If you're trying to sell something to someone and all they want to do is get to the bottom line and find out what's in it for them, but you're spending all kinds of time, talking them through your process and walking through the spreadsheets and your projections and your reasoning, you're going to lose them. And there's no reason to.
Wow, that actually got me thinking pretty hard, actually, because I definitely have a tendency of over-explaining myself to some people.
Trust me, I learned this the hard way myself, Trey. I had my last business, we ran a team of 160 people, and they used to say, Christine, you could say things, you only need to say things once instead of 3 times. And I had to learn the hard way that I was alienating people. So yeah, I mean, we all have that tendency to think that our way is the only way, or that we don't have to be mindful of how other people are hearing, absorbing, learning, accepting, and being willing to communicate with us.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something. If you have questions, email us at info@thelocalcrown.com. And if you want to get featured in our publication, Inside the Empire, alongside John Lee Dumas, the entrepreneur on fire, Jayson Waller, the CEO of Power Home Solar, Sharon Lechter, Dan Caldwell, the man that started Tap Out, and the limitless man himself, Kwik, for free, then head over to thelocalcrown.com/become a contributor.